Hello, people. This is the Bay Area Cat in the Dark. Theoretically, I understand why Albert Einstein tried to make himself go insane because he tried to tap into other parts of his mind that would intensify his intellect. Now, I was diagnosed with psychotic mental depression, but I also have psychosis, where I hear voices and stuff. It's like the part of the mind where you dream is turned on when you awoke. And you see all kind of corruptive things, like now, wicked stuff that drive people crazy, tell you to do all kind of crazy stuff. By me communicating and when talking to it, it kind of like taught it to be intelligent with a person like me and stuff and respond in a wicked way, sometime and in a respectful way sometimes. So I would know like the difference between wickedness and righteousness in some sense. But through it all, it just intensified my creative thinking in some sense to make me think more creative. So even though I improved as far as my rap skills and stuff compared to what they were when I started, it just didn't improve that. In some sense, it improved my thinking as far as science, like explaining, looking at uranium, being radioactive and radioactive K, and theoretically looking at everything that they said about it. The particles, the valence electron. I think the valence electron is actually the magnetic polarity that activates the particles to react and move. They think it's something else. I think actually the neutron, theoretically, and this came into me in the form of idea because I believe that God, whatever created the universe and everything in it, that those beings or that being, can only say that they were God. Even though people believe they God, they believe they God's people and stuff like that. So, I mean, I might just be crazy or whatever, but theoretically, if the neutron, is the source, the fuel source in uranium that just vibrates, and by it vibrating and moving, it emits, the gas that causes radioactivity, for it to burn, whatever particles or whatever molecules the particles move to burn to cause it to decay to release the energy and stuff. Because as far as I know, I think radion gas or radion is like emitted from uranium. I'm not really sure. They say hydrogen and oxygen is. I don't really feel that a little bit, but it may be. They know more than me. But that gives the neutron a function in some sense. Because a neutron is kind of like a proton where it doesn't move, in some sense. But you know, that's why a neutron probably would be an abundant fuel source where because with uranium now, with the nuclear subs and stuff like that, they probably can keep a sub running, for almost 100 years without even having to change the uranium. But the thing that make uranium and radioactive material dangerous is it causes cancer and all kind of stuff. But if they were able to control when the neutron stopped vibrating, and then actually when it stopped vibrating, making it vibrate, they would actually make uranium safe to use. Now, what if there was like a vibration, a tone, or a frequency emitted with some type of tone? And to me, in some sense, even though they don't call this an algorithm, I call that an algorithm. That's my definition of it. An algorithm is a frequency that emits a sound that causes the reactions of the neutrons to shut down. Now, that means we would make uranium safe. It kind of like intensified me to think of it in that way because it's unknown, because I like to think of the unknown stuff, and I could be wrong, but it's a theory. Also, if they can either intensify the reaction of the uranium to, produce more energy just by another algorithm or another frequency that emits a sound that causes it to vibrate more, then truth be told, if you cut it off and you cut a uranium back on with this same frequency, that means you control neutrons. So what if the neutrons is an abundant source where it recycles itself to the point to where it can just, that's how, if the neutron breaks down, that's how you lose radioactive decay, but actually, that's how, that'll make the electrons intensify, and then that's when you have, uranium explode or blow up just because the neutrons broke down. And in another sense, let's look at it like this. Because the sun and stars are radioactive, right? Yeah. Say, for instance, the sun starts to break down. Maybe that's what happens when a black hole gets so close to a star, or it may be light years away, but the star feels it, so it starts to break down. And then the plasma, starts to remove because the neutrons aren't emitting, the type of gases that it needs to ignite to so the particles can move, what they need to move to cause radioactive decay, so the energy can be emitted from the sun. So those holes in the sun or whatever may be forms of radioactivity losing its neutrons. But if we had a frequency that repaired or turned neutrons back on after they left, just by studying uranium, then whenever that happened to the sun, we would be able to repair the sun to the point to where, hey, well, it needs the neutrons. So we turned the neutrons back on, and the neutrons started activating again and releasing, gases. Then the particles were moving, and then it would ignite it and then cause radioactive decay, and it would probably actually replace the plasma in the sun. Because another funny thing, what if plasma is uranium? But plasma in its form is so hot, it's just in the form of a liquid. But once it's cooled and it's radioactive, then that might be the real stardust. Because I heard the Asians or some documentary say stardust was actually gold. So that's why. So theoretically, if we study the neutron theory, we'll find out how to not only control uranium to make it safe, because it is an abundant power source. Some forms of uranium, not even that big, can probably power a whole city for like at least 50 to 100 years. I mean, that's a great thing to have. Having, all of these, fuel and gas polluting the air, tearing up the coral reefs and the ocean. So we, killing all the good fish that's in the sea, destroying our planet slowly but surely. Then I also said that I sent NASA a theory about gravitational signals. But I would think we would have to figure out how to move a proton, because maybe a photon, they said that's like a proton, but I don't know. I think more of a moving a proton is what happens in the sun, once, if there's two neutrons, there might be a neutron inside the electron, and there might be a neutron inside the proton. But if a gamma ray is not emitted, then that means that the proton is not moving or vibrating. Because a gamma ray is a beam of light. The sunlight is basically a gamma ray. And it's radioactive, but the sunlight is actually good radioactivity and stuff like that. So that's why, they say they can do this with a particle accelerator, but I don't know if they can or not. But moving the proton and probably adding a different element, because you can change the reaction of metals and stuff and different things. If you add certain chemicals to it or other elements, you turn it into a different metal, and you might get a different form of radioactivity. You never really know. So with that said, if they ever figure out how to make a frequency that emits gravitational change, like to alter a planet's gravity or to either nova a star, the next step would be to figure out that theoretically, I said that because black holes run on a whole different principle, that all existing matter, this is what they all existing matter has electrons, neutrons, and protons in the nucleus. So what if like things like rubber insulators, because current can't really be ran through it, but current can run through people, metal, and certain things, water and stuff like that. All those things have electrons in them. But the things that current can't just flow through and do anything, those things don't have a neutron. Just like a black hole. It doesn't really, a black hole isn't really like, I don't think it's energy. I think it's more or less the opposite of energy in some sense. Because it actually attacks and eats stars and swallow them whole and stuff like that. What if a neutron, that like the black hole has electrons, or not electrons, but protons, neutrons, and a nucleus? But still, fact remain, even if it did have electron, what if all we had to do was emit a gravitational change that emitted gravity that actually like removed the neutrons from the gravitational change of the black hole. So once the neutrons were moved, you know what I'm saying, the black hole would start to shut down, and it would get smaller and smaller, and then it would turn into nothing. Then we would be kind of like at the part where we can defend ourselves from one of the most deadliest things in space. Now that'd be a great thing. I think a lot of the diseases in the world are caused by radioactivity. If radioactivity can kill cells in your body, then they can also mutate cells. And our viruses and certain diseases that you get, are they reactions of radioactivity? Changed cells, damaged cells, mutated cells. It's very interesting, this radioactivity, man. Because conquering living in space is going to have to be something we do. What if we invent that frequency that emits gravity and then figure out how to send signals light years? Then we emit a vacuum gravitational signal, which attaches to stars, draws energies from stars to star, and then we would travel from star to star. I'm not saying at the speed of light, but I'm saying if we had control to push off a star and pull from another star, travel at a high speed, but I think we would probably still need an atmosphere. But if we had gravity, in space with a gravitational vacuum and the vessel traveled in it, then we'll be able to walk, sit, and chill, just because we knew how to manipulate gravity like we needed to, in some sense. Because then, if that wouldn't work, then we would have to make artificial gravity. And artificial gravity to me is just altering magnetism into the point to where it attracted organic matter. These are the things that I think about, with my creative thinking and stuff like that. I'm not saying I'm right, but it's a little bit more creative, you know what I'm saying, knowing that I have psychosis. So people would say I'm crazy for saying that. But a lot of the theories I just said, I wonder what some of the physicists would say. Maybe one day I'll get to tell them. The only reason why I'm doing this in the dark, because I don't want people to see who I am talking about this. Because if they figure something out, they're probably going to try to look at me want to bring harm to me just because. Truth be told, if it's true, then Albert Einstein was right. You can intensify your intellect. You know what I'm saying? Just from having a mental problem, if you can tame your mind to resist, the things that's blocking your mind from what the original people used to do. Because I believe, since my mind, it seems like it's trained to function improperly. And it's trained to deprive you and drive you crazy and kill yourself and do all kind of crazy shit to people. But because of the type of man I am and the things that I've been through, I was able to resist it and train myself to deal with it by just communicating with it and talking sense into it, and just like what black people say, keeping it real. Which is, I've been going through the psychosis part for 22 years. But I think I always had a mental problem ever since I was born. So, theoretically, if those things are possible, they may have evidence now you can intend, and that part of your mind is supposed to be on and not blocked. Because there's probably people here that receive messages from the creator and actually communicate, because when people was building pyramids, and if they have frequencies that healed people, I seen one of the documentaries, one frequency like purified water healed people, kept fungus off their body, parasites and viruses from forming in their body. That's true. Then what was those things, people, what consciousness was they in? So those people probably conditions people's minds to block them from that part of the mind, because they figured out it was a lot of people in the world that had that part of their mind. And also remember, I'm a Bay Area cat, but also remember this: I'm also a United States Navy honorably discharged vet that's disabled with psychotic mental depression. But if you think some of my theories are worth looking at, hey, I'll be happy that I said that. I might have just helped mankind. I already put out a theory about water and space. And then water, water source, when, by just altering the freezer technology, but, all of that stuff seems impossible. But maybe one day I'll get to try to do some of them. Because I don't want to really be around radioactive, because I don't want cancer, you know what I'm saying? Because that shit do change cells, though. That'll fuck you up. But, y'all have a good day. This is Bay Area Cat out.